Hello, I'm David Slakes, and in this video I will be demonstrating how you can override default Vidyano behavior for one of your persistent objects. By default, Vidyano uses the underlying .NET Entity Framework for generating dynamic SQL to implement insert, read, update, and delete operations. In practice, however, you typically customize your application to suit your business needs. Vidyano offers maximum flexibility when it comes to manipulating this default behavior for any of your objects. For this example, I will be overriding the default behavior for deleting a customer in my application. By default, and for safety reasons, when you try to delete an object that has related data in your database, you will receive an error message. There are a couple options for you to deal with this. One of them is switching on Cascade Delete on the underlying .NET Entity Framework model, which will cause all related data to be deleted as well. As you might imagine, this is not something I would prefer in my application, since it would cause all of my sales orders for this customer to be deleted as well. A better option would be to flag this customer as inactive. I therefore extended the database schema to include an isActive column on the customers table. You can see the value for this column on the customer's query here. Overriding default behavior for a persistent object in Vidyano is done by adding the logic to what we call a persistent object actions class. Just like business rules in Vidyano, there are two ways for adding logic here, either in Visual Studio using C# or in a metadata for my persistent object using JavaScript. In this case, I will use Visual Studio and C#. In Visual Studio, right-click your Vidyano project and select Add Persistent Object Actions class. Vidyano will then prompt me with a dialog that lists all the persistent objects in my application. I'll add a persistent object class for my customer persistent object and click Finish. In this class, I can now start overriding default Vidyano behavior. For this example, I need to intervene during the delete operation, so I will add an override method for onDelete. I can get rid of the base onDelete call here, since I will be providing my own logic. Next, I go over all the entities and set their isActive flag to false. I then call context, save changes to persist my changes. Let me demonstrate this new behavior in my application. I select one of my customers here and press the delete key on my keyboard. I confirm my action, and you will see that the isActive flag for this customer has been set to false. As a finishing touch, I would also like to not show the customers here that have their isActive flag set to false. To accomplish this, I will click the Configure action and select Query to go to the metadata for my customer's query. I then edit the where attribute here and set its value to it.isActive. The where class you write here is passed to Entity Framework as an extra entity SQL class to my query. I save my changes, and next I'm going to click the Columns tab. I select my isActive attribute and set the isHidden to true. Going back to my customers, you will now see this query's delete behavior work just like a real delete operation, while underneath we just flag the customer as inactive. As mentioned earlier, you can also add custom persistent object logic to the metadata using JavaScript code. This comes in handy if you need to make, for instance, changes to your application while your application is in production. For this, I go to the metadata of my customer persistent object. I then click the Actions tab, and there I have a list of all the actions that I am able to override on my persistent object using JavaScript. Note that when I open my onDelete action here, I am now able to override the C# code I wrote earlier, since the base.onDelete call will call my code. That's it for this video. I hope you liked watching.